of deliberations around the future of making, and especially when it comes to the kind of growth that we're seeing across from a population standpoint, the kind of growth that we're seeing from the middle class, and the kind of impact that it has on the natural resources that we have in the country, and its impact on the design and make process. So it's going to be an interesting discussion. I know that a couple of our eminent speakers with us this morning, policymakers, who had the opportunity to come and share in some of the policies that the country is really looking at, to mitigate some of the risks and challenges that we have as a country. What I'm going to do over the next couple of minutes is really talk to you about the future of making when it comes to the design and make convergence that we're seeing today across the customer spectrum. And some of these figures are something that all of you know, but it's this question of how do you realize that and see how we're going to make those changes and impact every child that you're going to deal with as we move forward. So the future of making things, I'm going to start by talking to you about some facts. Today we are about 7.5 billion people on this planet, right? 7.5 billion people on the planet. And by 2050, it's estimated that we're going to be 10 billion people. 10 billion people are going to be living in this planet by 2050. And how does it matter to all of us? Across the world, all around the world, what we're seeing today is there's an emergence of the middle class. The emergence of the middle class is growing at a pace which we've never seen in the past. A growth rate which is at any time faster than any time that we've had in the history. In 1990, less than a quarter of the world population could earn enough to be classified as the middle class. And today, almost half of us would do that. More than half of the world population today are classified as middle class. That's almost about 3 times as many people whose lives have become better. From a statistics standpoint, it's almost about 400,000 people who are joining the middle class every day. And that essentially means 400,000 people will desire and deserve all that you and me want. We all love to have mobile phones. We all love to have motorized transports. We all love to have abundant food. We need hospitals, we need highways, we need buildings, we need homes to stay in. And interestingly, statistics says that 2/3 of this population by 2050 will start to live in cities. That's 68% of the 10 billion people that we're talking about. And this is going to be having a huge impact on all that is available for these people. Right from hospitals to education, to water, to natural resources, to wheat. There's going to be a huge impact and a growing demand for all these things that we're talking about with this exponential growth of population and the middle class that we're talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, the more is inevitable. As we see more and more population, as we see more and more people joining the middle class, we will see that there's more and more demand for a lot of things around. And the more is just becoming inevitable. And interestingly, when you look at this growth, more demand does not mean more growth of jobs. It really doesn't mean more equality. But on the adverse, what you would see is there's an increased potential for negative impact. There's an increased potential for negative impact, which is an unintended cause or consequences of all that we make. Of all the things that we make to meet the growing demands of the population, there is an unintended consequence. And that's what we're seeing today across the world. Now, this could be in terms of pollution, or it could be less natural resources that we're going to leave as we build more and more products to meet this demand. And obviously, as we're always talking about, there's always less skilled manpower available who can innovate and build products, having less negative impact on the community, causing less harm to the community, to the planet, to the people around. especially in industries across the manufacturing and construction industries. There's always a deficit of skilled workers, and we're going to continue to see that. So ladies and gentlemen, as much as what we talk about the more is inevitable, we also realize that the less is becoming reality. And the question is, how do you balance both of them? In a situation like this, when there is a capacity issue, our next generation of designers and engineers are going to be challenged repeatedly to innovate, to reimagine the way in which they make products, to address the growing demands that we see in the population. We just can't do the same way we've done for years. When a third of the global waste is created through construction. You see this in your own cities. More than 70% of the spare parts that are manufactured today aren't even needed ever. The inefficiencies of manufacturing as a result of the inefficiencies in supply chain. You'll see every single industry talking about it. There's so much of wastage of warehouses, space, wastage of spare parts, wastage of money. How are we going to address these challenges? So balancing the inevitability of the more with the reality of the less, casting less negative impact to people and to environment, is the new challenge for all our designers and engineers moving forward. And if you really understand this, you will start to appreciate that the opportunity that we have today is something that we've never had in the past. It's an unprecedented rate of opportunity that we have today to solve this through innovation. And that brings about the thought process of how we're going to start working. And what are we going to work on? Are we going to work on the same challenges the same way that we've done in the past? Or are we going to find out new ways and new challenges that we're going to solve? New ways of working. Are we going to worry about automation taking our jobs away? Or are we going to talk about how do we work together collectively, and where do we take automation to? How is it we can work together with technology and automation? And that's the opportunity for better. So when we're talking about things, and I just said, as we make things to meet these demands, the impact is very high. And what do we mean by better things? How are things changing today? We had a couple of our folks talking about it. How are things becoming increasingly connected with each other? How is there the influence of digital with the physical world of things? Semiconductors, processors, media, whatnot. We're not going to have things off the shelf that's going to meet the desire of this growing population that we're talking about. How are things going to become more and more meaningful to the end users? How are they best suited to the product use, to the users, to the requirements of human needs? And what about making as a process? We spoke about things getting more and more connected, more meaningful. It's also a question of how do we go about making this? What's the process and model that we adopt to make things? We are seeing that as a company. We're seeing our customers. We're seeing technology, robotics. Robots are moving from production line to construction sites. We're seeing a lot of how 3D printing is not being constrained to prototyping. It was. Today, it's not the fact so. 3D printing is not constrained to prototyping. It's a proven manufacturing process that's used in automotive, in aerospace. We have the capability of making things which increasing complexity and increasing fidelity. But today, we have the opportunity to make things which are increasingly meaningful, which are better products and which can serve better and has a life that is better. And all this has a profound impact on how we work and what we work on. When automation is flipping the model of how you're going to make things, with the proliferation of advanced manufacturing capabilities and the kind of products that you're going to be able to bring with technology, it has a profound impact on how it's creating meaningful work for all of us and for the generations to come forward. So we keep talking about making better things. What does it essentially mean? I'm going to give you an example of one of our customers, and well, might be interesting to all of you. And this is General Motors. All of you know about GM. The things that GM has made over the past 100 years have changed every time. So for its innovation in the production assembly line. GM has always leveraged on automation to optimize their production capacity. To the extent that GM today rolls out a car every minute of their assembly line. Every minute there's a car that rolls out of the assembly line at General Motors. Interestingly, every car has close to about 30,000 parts. 30,000 parts in a car which rolls out every minute. There's tremendous amount of automation, robots involved to do this. But GM understands that optimization and production alone is not going to help them compete in a rapidly changing auto industry. So at CEO, Mary Berra, what she's doing is she's helping GM reinvent, to reimagine its business around electrics. She's committed to delivering, to bring to market 20 vehicles by 2023. And that means there's a lot of efficiency improvement, which essentially means there's a lot of weight reduction, there's a lot of process improvement that's required to achieve that dream, to achieve that mission. So GM worked on a simple project with Autodesk, and this is on the generative design algorithm. This is actually a bracket where the rear seat belts fasten to. This is a project where GM comes and says, I'm going to reimagine the model of automation in my industry. And they're saying, okay, moving away from what we've traditionally done with designers and engineers using passive design processes to saying, I'm going to work with machines, leverage and all that we spoke about, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and see how we can automate this model. So they worked, their designers and engineers shared the creative goal with the machine by defining the constraint of the load that the part has to take, the parts that are going to be connected with the other parts, and leave the machine to come with a number of iterations. So if you look at this, the machine throws up, the software throws up the number of design options. It's not going to be the same way that when there's a designer who sits on a machine and starts designing something. It's a way that you're going to define the creative goal with the software, and the software throws up the number of design options. You are raising the bar and the workload on the design and engineer sitting at General Motors. They are going to take logical decisions of the best product, of the best design option based on performance, based on manufacturing viability, based on material science, and how it's going to integrate with the rest of the car. The outcome, this is the product, this is the model that they had selected, which is 40% lesser than the original product and 20% more stronger. And interestingly, what you see is a part, it's a single 3D printed part, as against 8 parts that were connected together to build one component. Look at the efficiency improvement with technology. And this is not just about GM alone, and it's not just going to impact their business or their R&D teams. It's impacting their supply chain. It's impacting the overall ecosystem that GM has. There's tremendous amount of benefit as they work with automation and start to co-create with technology. This is not just with General Motors. This is spanning across all the customers. Be it a big industrial giant, be it a small bunch of students, or be it one of the biggest car makers in the world. I was able to share this yesterday with some of the educators. Might be a repetition, but an interesting stuff that you want to see. This is a car this is a bunch of people called Banditor Brothers who make these insane cars, really cars that are pushed to high limits. What they've done is they've fitted a number of sensors. We talk about collaboration, a multidisciplinary collaboration coming in, right? This is about an example of taking IoT, a number of sensors that are connected to the car's chassis, and then the car is supposed to push to a maximum limit. And if you do that, the sensors capture data, insightful data about the forces that are acting on the various parts of the car. And that is being fed into what we call the generative design algorithm. And this is the kind of design the machine is able to throw out. A design which a human brain wouldn't have been able to do it all alone, but yet has been able to do it with partnering with technology. A process of co-creation. Can you imagine a design like this that some of our designers would have done that? Improving proficiency at very high levels with automation. And this powers up the entire remake cycle. We see these impact across industries, not just manufacturing, across the built industry. I'm going to shift gears and see how it's going to. This is one of the biggest construction companies across the world. The US Bank Stadium, which was recently opened up for the NFL Vikings Minnesota. A stadium which has a capacity of 70,000 seats, with transparent roof and 5 large pivoting glass doors, and the closest NFL feed seats. The interesting fact is not just the magnitude of the project, but how they are able to immerse their clients and stakeholders into the process of making it. They're able to virtually see how the project is going to be built in the pre-construction phase. And how they've used technology to digitize the whole process of construction. Morton used BIM 360 platforms. They used tablets. The digital map of the concrete pours they created in an office, it is shared through BIM 360 with the surveyors in the field, to the subs on the field. The concrete pours are poured exactly in locations without any miscommunication. A project of this size with 76 million liters of concrete and 1,500 concrete pours, there was no flaw. The impact of this is Mortensen was able to deliver a stadium 6 weeks in advance. An industry which is chronically delivering late. And hundreds of millions of dollars of saving with technology. So you're seeing the span across the industry, construction to manufacturing to film and all that. Our customers are embracing what we call the future making things. And this is not a marketing tagline, gentlemen. This is right here. It's happening right here. The examples that you've seen is how our customers are embracing that. This is the old way. We work with one man, one machine, and then we have one option. And today we're talking about with Industry 4.0. We're talking about how one person will work with our AI, will work with cloud, be in a position to collaborate and innovate and have a number of design options to solve what we spoke about, the more which is inevitable. So as we start to embrace the future making and work with technology and tools and foster co-creation, that's the mantra to nurturing innovation. So balancing the more which is inevitable with the less which is a reality, and seeing the opportunity to foster co-creation and nurture innovation is something that our customers are embracing. And we love to do that with you as educators, because you are dealing with the next generation. Every single person, designer and engineer, who's going to solve some of the world's biggest problems going forward are 100% in your jurisdiction. Are 100% in your jurisdiction. Each of you are accountable to have this delivered. And we're doing our bit of story around it. We are partnered with ICT to bring this to table. We're here to give you software. We're here to give you content. We're here to empower your faculty members and help each of your students to imagine, design, and create a better world. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be here for the rest of the day. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.